I think it's time to replace these motor mounts today. Oh, and replace my head. We'll take care of that later.
All right, you guys, it's time to replace the motor mounts on our 2005 E46 M3, and currently the car sits at 171,000 miles and the motor mounts are toast. So I have this engine level here and it's going to hold up the motor while I disconnect the motor mounts, and here are the new mounts. These are the Lemforders, part number 1548701. And we're going to be installing these bad boys. So here's what they look like. And they're both the same. One for this side right around here, and one for this side right around here. Somewhere back there. So we're going to be installing these and we're going to take you through the process. It's not too difficult, but you do have to remove some things that are in the way. But the car should be a whole lot better once we have the engine sitting upright, because right now the engine on these mounts is sitting about 2 inches too low or so, and so the car does have a hard time shifting between the gears. So I'm hoping once everything is aligned, the car will shift a whole lot better. So okay, so here's how to get to the top bolt on the passenger side. So it's a little tricky at first because when you look straight down, you can't really see anything because there's a whole bunch of stuff in the way. But what you can do is you can take that heat shield right there and bend it back a little bit, and then the bolt will be right there. So let me turn on the light. And shine it down in there. If you bend that shield back, then you look down. Not sure if the camera can pick it up. So I can see it from here, but it doesn't look like it's coming up on camera. Actually, you could see the bolt right there. Right there. The bolt right in front of my finger. So all you have to do is you have to get an extension. You have to reach down there and undo that bolt, and then you have to get under the car and undo the one from the bottom, and you're set on the passenger side. Alright, well, after using my extension here, it looks like I was finally able to get that bolt loose. So you can see how it's all set up. So right now I finally broke it loose. It was on there pretty tight. So now what I have to do is I have to remove this and see if I could knock down the nut so it falls onto the floor. It doesn't get stuck anywhere. Or maybe just, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen it probably just like this, and then when I get under the car I'm just going to remove the nut by hand. That way I'm not going to lose it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this. And you're going to see the contraption that I used. There's a 16 with a swivel, an extension, a longer extension, and my, sort of breaker bar. So there it is. All right, so that side's loose. Let's see if I could show you guys. There's the bolt right there. Now I gotta do it from the bottom and see what I have to do to remove the mount out of there. There's the dreaded motor mount. And as I was saying, I'm going to finish removing the top nut when I'm under the car. So I'm just gonna reach over here. I'm gonna feel for it. And it's pretty loose. So I'm just gonna undo it here. Oh, and it still fell, but at least now I know where it is. And there it is. All that work to remove that nut. Kind of a pain, but it is what it is. So now, just have to remove this one here on the bottom, and then the mount will be ready to remove. The only problem is that we're not going to be able to remove the mount until we either lower the subframe, which is this part right here. We can do that by removing these 4 bolts, and then 2 on the other side. Or we could lift up the engine probably about 2 or 3 inches to give us enough room to slide out this mount and slide in the new one. But it might be easier to remove the subframe. Okay, so now that we have the top nut off of the passenger side mount, and we have to start working on the driver's side mount, you can see that there's a lot more things in the way. So we're going to start by removing the strut bar, and it's going to be those 2 bolts, or sorry, those 2 nuts, and these 2 nuts. And you're going to want to use the size 13. Okay, strut bar has been removed. So we just removed those bolts right here. So now we have to remove the intake. So I'm going to undo these 2 clips. I'm going to undo the sensor. I'm going to remove this hose clamp and remove this hose clamp, and it should all come out. Record that. This, of course, has to be super tight. That's loose. I'm going to remove this sensor connector. Okay, that's loose. Move that out of the way. Now I'm going to undo this. Try and remove this box. Okay, there's the box out of the way. Put it here for now. And I'm gonna loosen this clamp right here. I'm gonna remove this elbow. All right, so we should see the top of the motor mount. Oh, there it is. We're gonna have to remove that nut right there. So that's for the motor mount right there. Okay, and we're gonna get started on that right now. Okay, so I have the same extension that I use on the other side. So I'm going to go down here. Let's see if it'll work. Yep, there it goes. Make sure it's on there so it doesn't strip. Ooh, that was tight. All right. Oops. That disconnected, no worries. So now it's hand tight. So what I'm gonna do is loosen it just a little bit more, and then I'm gonna finish it from the bottom just like I did the other side. Right now it's hand loose, but still a little tight, so might not be too easy. So I'm just gonna give it a couple more turns. Okay, now it feels pretty loose, so I'm just gonna take this off. There we go, and we're gonna finish it from the bottom. The top is loose. Sorry, the nut on top is loose. I get to remove it from the bottom here, so I'm just gonna reach up and do it, but I gotta get new lights because these lights are so hot that they keep burning my arm every time I accidentally touch them. Do not get these, get LEDs. I made a mistake. Halogen or whatever these are, too hot. Very annoying. Anyways, so I'm gonna reach up there, finish taking out the nut, and we should be good to go. Here it goes. Ta-da! It's out. All right, so now that the nut on the top of this mount is off and the nut on the top of this mount is off, what I have to do is I have to lower the subframe. So I have to remove 4 bolts. This one, that one back there. It'll be kind of hard to see. And then these 2 bolts. And once I do that, this whole subframe right here is gonna lower. So what I need to do is use this guy to support the motor. I'm gonna put it right under the subframe right here. And once it's loose, I'm just gonna lower it down a couple inches at a time until I can get the motor mounts out. All right, the support is up. There it goes, you can see that it's now supporting up the subframe. It can hold up to 1,500 pounds, so we are good here. All right, so now that this is holding it up, I can go ahead and remove these nuts. I'm gonna use an impact. I believe they're probably 16s as well. This one looks really, really crusty, so I hope once I put an impact to it, it's gonna come off pretty easy. That one looks pretty good, so I'm hoping this one's just really dirty and there's no corrosion through the actual nut or bolt. So I'm gonna get started on that right now. There you go, came out pretty easy. So just have to do that to the other 3. All right, so now you can see these are all loose and those are all loose. So all 4 of them. You're gonna also wanna remove this harness right here. So it attaches into here like this. And so I simply removed it. And so now there should be nothing in the way. Okay, the other thing that you want to remove before lowering the subframe is this bracket right here. So this bracket actually goes behind the control arm like this. And mine had a tie strap right here, but I'm not sure if the tie strap is how they do it from the factory. So I'm not sure if at some point this was removed and secured with a tie strap or not, but mine was. So I removed the tie strap and I pushed this thing out of the way. And so now there should be nothing holding the subframe. Everything should be ready to go. Okay, what you're going to want to do next is remove your front control arm bushings from here. So you're just going to want to undo those 2 16mm bolts. And then what I did was I lowered down the subframe a little bit, and I have plenty of room to get out the old motor mount. And there it goes. There's the old one. All right, here's a little video showing the old mount here on the left versus the new mount on the right. You can see the old mount's pretty worn. It's not horrible, but it is worn. So now we're gonna put in the new one. Okay, so now the motor mounts are in. You guys can see them here. In order to get the subframe back up though, one thing which I had to do was jack up the motor, because what happened was if I was only jacking up the subframe, it would go in at an angle and I couldn't get these bolts in. So in order to get the bolts in, I had to jack up the motor so it matched up with the angle of the subframe. So here you can see I got the bolts in, it's sitting flush against the chassis, and the subframe is now back. So all I have to do is reconnect the lower control arms and then button everything back up, and then go from the very top and tighten these nuts up here. So I put this heat shield back, and I have the nut on there hand tight. And same here, this one doesn't have a heat shield because this one is next to an exhaust. So this one just has a nut up here on the very top. And I also put that in hand tight. So I just have to tighten those from the top. And the motor mount project is complete.